Greetings to all you listeners out there who have, once again, consciously chosen to have B30 back in your life for 30 minutes or less. I swear, one day I'm gonna do the whole segment in like that kind of 1940s, 1920s voice. Anyways, so I have to come clean. For today's topic, for the session's topic, I'm not very culturally aware or sensitive about, supernatural events or disturbances. I live in North America where supernatural activity is rather low compared to other parts of the world. Or it's just underreported because we as in the North American culture kind of misidentify kind of supernatural activity as something else. Maybe we call it mental illness or we call someone delusional. Either way, people here don't really talk about it in a very honest fashion because, they're afraid people won't take them seriously. I guess what it comes down to is people who've seen ghosts, they can't really prove their supernatural experience with actual empirical evidence. But at the same time, skeptics can't disprove the supernatural experience of those who've seen ghosts. So it's kind of like, I can't prove you're wrong, but you can't prove you're right, so we're at a stalemate kind of thing. But what I do know about ghosts, spirits, and demons is based entirely from nothing substantial. Whatever I know about ghosts and the occult, I basically got from TV shows. I don't know, Ghostbusters or movies or whatever. And every now and then I'll get a personal anecdote where someone shared about their experience. For example, I had a treasured acquaintance once share with me how he went overseas to Southeast Asia and then he had some supernatural experience at night time when he was sleeping or something. Anyways, what stuff do I know about ghosts? Let's see. They're allergic to iron, so if you see some wispy ghost figure, apparently if you get something made out of iron, it could be rusty or old, you just take a swing at them and then they disappear for a good 20-30 seconds, but then they'll come back, so it doesn't send them away permanently. Another thing is salt. If you want to send a ghost away permanently, I watched this TV show where you dig up the grave of the ghost that's haunting you, and then you sprinkle the corpse, the bones, the skeleton with salt, and then you douse the corpse skeleton with lighter fluid or gasoline, and then you light it on fire, and it just disintegrates the spirit or something. What else? When you're in a room and there's a supernatural presence, it gets really cold, so if you breathe, you can see your own breath. They give off a frequency. I don't know. People, I think ghost hunters and those paranormal activity people, I think there's reality shows on them. They use those EMF devices to measure ghost activity. The whole ectoplasm thing, where if a ghost has been somewhere, they leave behind this really gross, sticky, oozy substance. It depends on what show you watch. I think it's either black or it's this jellyfish-like color. I don't know. It's gross. And if you had a demon who was somewhere on Earth, they leave behind some trace of sulfur residue or whatever. Once again, I would like to reiterate, I watch a lot of TV, and what I just said the past minute or so has no substantial backing whatsoever. But it's just what I know so far. And let's not forget the classic depiction in comics and cartoons where ghosts have a human shape and they're kind of darkish gray or white and they're see-through. And I've heard from other testimonials where people have described them like vapor. Kind of how on a hot day when you're near a gas station and you can kind of see the fumes floating around where things look all blurry, so it's all wispy and floating around. So that's one way to describe how a ghost appears in a tangible form on the earthly plane of existence or something. And last but not least, there's also the shadowy figure, like the silhouette. A lot of different descriptions of a ghost or phantom spirit. But honestly, I really don't know what I'm talking about. Thank the Lord, and kind of knock on wood, I haven't had a personal supernatural experience of any kind. It's only natural that I'm not very knowledgeable nor personally and emotionally invested in this topic, but that just goes to show how sheltered I am in my little North American urbanized environment, and I really need to expand my perspective on the fact that there are people from all walks of life who may be either curious or struggling to make sense of a ghostly or kind of supernatural encounter. And let me tell you, discussing the existence of ghosts and, how should religious people like Christians, how should they understand it? It's more relevant than you think, because there was a poll conducted in 2009 by this organization called the Pew Forum, and it's about religion and public life in America. So they did this little poll in the States, and basically 1 in 5 Americans believe in ghosts, or 1 in 5 Americans claim they have seen a ghost. And get this, more than 1 in 3 Americans feel they've been in contact with the dead, or, I don't know, whether they've seen a ghost or a psychic or other means. Either way, whatever mode of communication you chose, 1 in 3 Americans have been in contact with the dead. Now, I'm not a numbers guy, but this 1 in 5 and 1 in 3, well, to me, that's a significant portion of Christians, non-believers, who believe in ghosts or have seen a ghost. And get this, particularly among the white and black Protestants and the white Catholics, the numbers are pretty high. So whether you agree with these numbers or not, maybe the numbers are skewed, the research and the data is not representative of the population at large. Either way, at some level, there is indeed some curiosity and concern about spirits and ghosts, non-believers and Christians alike. I don't know. At the same time, deep down, I have this snobby attitude that us highly educated North American urbanized people are so rational. And we live in this kind of first world nation environment, and I don't know, I just can't, or I just don't take this ghost stuff very seriously. This comes back to a point I made earlier, where when you have people who are indeed interested in the paranormal, they don't feel like they can go to like a religious authority like some pastor, or they don't feel like they can go to some health counselor or some other religious authority, because, I don't know, you just won't be taken seriously. For example, there's a Southern Baptist pastor from Oklahoma, let's just say his name is Eric. He shared a story about his mother who asked a pastor at a church service what the Bible had to say about ghosts. And what the pastor said to Eric's mother was, meh, that's it. The pastor apparently just dismissed her question. I guess this is the North American mentality. We just don't take this ghost business seriously. And what happens is, if you don't get an answer from like a credible Christian leader, well, you're going to go look for answers somewhere else. I guess that's why people start using like Ouija boards or something, or start using sorcery. Kind of like how hipsters in New York are into sorcery. Anyways, in order for people to get a sense of control in their lives, they resort to these occult kind of methods. So it's basically a vicious cycle where people are curious, they want to know what's going on in the supernatural world, but they can't talk to proper religious authorities because people are going to think they're nuts. So they go find answers elsewhere in the occult, and what happens is when you start dabbling in the occult and sorcery, you basically increase your likelihood of more ghostly encounters. And then the process repeats itself where, oh, I'm seeing more ghosts again, I gotta find more answers. And when you're finding more answers, you're looking for more ghosts, and blah, blah, blah. It's one big kind of garbled mess. So what better way to address this angst and concern than to begin first by establishing a definition of a ghost that we all can agree on. So the most popular belief in North American culture or definition of a ghost is, which I also have been subscribing to for the longest time, is ghosts are the spirits of humans who have died. And what happens is they stay on Earth, haunting people and wisping around because they haven't, quote-unquote, crossed over to heaven or hell. When I think of this definition, I'm like, yeah, I thought it's like common sense. That's what ghosts are. And then I would picture in my head this random dead person lying on the ground. Like, that person's dead, right? So then this see-through, bluish, gray, wispy ghost version of that dead person would just kind of float up, and then it would look back at its dead corpse, like that kind of deal. So that's basically my definition of a ghost. And yeah, apparently this is not what a ghost is, according to the Christian worldview. What Christian author and ministry leader Rhodes states is that when people encounter a genuine spirit, it is not a dead human, but rather a demonic spirit deceiving living humans. So this is the proper biblical understanding of ghosts. Ghosts are nothing but demons in the form of some of your dead loved one, and they're basically just messing with you. So you're probably thinking, how can this Christian guy, Rhodes, be so sure that ghosts are only or just demonic spirits? How can he be so sure that it's not really the spirit of our dead loved ones or whatever? Well, that's because Mr. Rhodes has scriptural support. And when the Hebrews author was writing his letter to assure his readers the supremacy and sufficiency of Christ, particularly how Jesus was and is the superior sacrifice, he indirectly reaffirmed in chapters 9, verse 27, Hebrews, that people are destined to die once, and after that, face judgment. So, the orthodox, the evangelical stance is we go immediately to heaven or hell when you die. Therefore, we're leaving no room for souls of the departed to roam the earth. Unless you have a bit of the Middle Ages Catholic theology under your belt and you believe in purgatory, which is what I like to call the afterlife waiting room. Or if you believe in the theological concept of soul sleep, basically your soul is offline in the grave when you die, and it's offline where you're buried or in some other location, and when the apocalypse comes, your soul is back online, and then you like reanimate, and then you face judgment. But be careful, the concept of soul sleep is also part of the Seventh-day Adventist kind of theology as well. So the point is, the orthodox stance in evangelical Christianity operates under the teaching that your soul goes directly to hell or heaven, and it does not linger on earth. Unless you're more of a Catholic theologian or you're into the soul sleep, this is the orthodox stance. You go to heaven or you go to hell. You don't mess around and float around on earth. So, if you think your dead loved one's spirit is still lingering on earth and the spirit looks so real, the voice, I recognize it, it's most likely that's a demonic spirit picking up on your spiritual or emotional vulnerability. And this may be due to the fact that maybe you just didn't have some closure with the dead loved one who passed on. I guess that's why these spirits have the power to cling on to humanity. I guess they're feeding off your lack of closure and that you really still miss the dead loved one. But then again, that's purely speculation on my part. And I guess this is why it's important to firmly know what the Bible teaches us about ghosts. Okay, so we know there are ghosts. You can believe in ghosts. It's just that ghosts are actually demonic spirits. But what next? What are the rules in terms of how to conduct yourself in the event you think you've had or you're having a ghostly encounter? Like, what do you do when you see a ghost or if you think you've seen a ghost? Well, the main biblical teaching concerning all ghosts and spirits is it firmly condemns seeking out the dead. So this teaching is a command in the Old Testament when God instructed the chosen nation about total spiritual commitment. So in Deuteronomy 18:10 to verse 12, basically the chosen nation was in the home stretch. They're going to go to the promised land. Moses was going to transfer leadership to Joshua, and then he was going to renew the laws and all the stuff passed down from previous generations and just renew it and go over it again to this new generation before he kind of gracefully steps aside and goes to see God. So Moses stands among the Israelite camp and he just lets it go and passionately warns the people, let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, don't interpret omens, don't engage in witchcraft, don't cast spells, or don't be involved with mediums or spiritists, don't consult the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. So he just flat out ends on that note. So, okay, provided that this historically specific command from Moses can be applied across all time periods, okay, I can accept that kind of teaching on how do we deal with ghosts. But what about those exceptions in the Bible? I think one that comes to mind is there was a Christian king who was not only successful in seeking out the dead, but this Christian king actually summoned the actual ghost of a dead person. This Christian king was not only successful in seeking out the dead, but the actual spirit that the Christian king found, it was indeed the ghost of so-and-so. What I'm referring to is King Saul, when he consulted a medium to talk to the ghost of Samuel. So if you want to check the background, it's in 1 Samuel 28, verse 5 to 16. So we're talking about when Saul was near the end of his reign. He's going to step aside for the next king, and then the Philistine army's like breathing down his neck, and God did not endorse Saul anymore, so there was no direct communication between God and Saul, so he got a little desperate. He went to look for a medium, which is rather ironic since King Saul himself banned kind of mediums and spiritists in his territory, which is kind of funny. That's why when he went to look for a medium, he had to disguise himself, and he had to travel to like the boonies, the outskirts of his kingdom, so he won't get recognized. And when he did get there, he told the medium to bring out his former trusted prophet Samuel. So that brings us to about verse 13-14. So the medium describes like this ghostly figure of an old man wearing a robe. And it's interesting in verses 13-14. Saul knew it was Samuel, and he bowed down and he prostrated himself with his face to the ground. And then later in verse 15, the ghost that was summoned spoke to Saul. And Samuel said, why have you disturbed me by bringing me up? So apparently this little spirit that was summoned was indeed Samuel, and it spoke to Saul. It's like, why are you disturbing me? Why did you bring me up? Is anybody else thinking what I'm thinking? Did the Bible just contradict itself? I thought it just said that we're not supposed to communicate with the dead, but here we see a king summoning the dead and actually successfully talking with the dead. Perhaps we have to explore 3 possible explanations to this biblical account. Choice A. Maybe God did in fact permit the spirit form of Samuel to appear before Saul and the woman. Or choice B. The spirit that was summoned was actually not Samuel, but indeed a devilish spirit, and it totally fooled Saul and the medium. Or choice C. The medium actually had some telepathic or other psychic abilities to contact the dead. Which one is true? Did Saul actually successfully summon Samuel, or was the spirit actually just a demon deceiving Saul? Or was it all just the medium's own power? Maybe she has some occult skills and she actually contacted a spirit. Well, the one which the unified Christian community claims to subscribe to is the traditional rabbinical view, which is choice A. God did in fact, in this case, in this particular passage, allowed the spirit form of Samuel to appear before the woman. And may I add, this is a super rare case where God actually let the real ghost of a dead person appear before Saul. And why is this kind of explanation accepted? Because there's a little hint in verse 12. when the witch or medium kind of summoned Samuel's ghost spirit, she was like scared. She wasn't expecting her little seance to actually work. So when she did her thing and an actual spirit that resembled Samuel just came out, she like really got sincerely creeped out. She's like, whoa, this actually worked. But the whole point of this narrative being recorded in the Bible is not to say, oh, look, you can talk to ghosts, and look, the real ghost of that person will show up, so go talk to ghosts. No, that's not the whole point of this narrative in the Bible. The point is to say that Saul was doing something that God has explicitly expressed to be forbidden. Don't talk to ghosts. But he did it anyways. Saul was not supposed to do that. Furthermore, the main message here is to show how far Saul had fallen out of God's will. And the point of the story is to show just how desperate he was. He had to resort to sorcery, which he banned himself, to get any form of direction and guidance. So what this session comes down to is, are Christians supposed to believe in ghosts? Yes, provided that you define a ghost as a demonic spirit, and that they impersonate a dead person's soul wandering the earth. The whole point of these quote-unquote ghosts is to deceive you and, as the kids say nowadays, troll you or whatever. Therefore, don't try to communicate or summon ghosts. If you have an unresolved issue or lack of closure with a loved one who's passed away, and you just strongly feel there's supernatural disturbance in your life, please consult a healthy mixture of medical, spiritual, and pastoral care professionals to help provide you with insight into basically what's going on. And hopefully you can persevere through these tough times. So I just want to end off by saying the church shouldn't be afraid of these questions about ghosts. Make sure you create an environment where people shouldn't be afraid of being mocked or not taken seriously for bringing up these topics within the church. So Christians, try to be open-minded, try to be compassionate, try to be good listeners about people's supernatural experiences. And for those who are struggling with supernatural experiences and they're kind of like haunting you, just remember, if you believe in Christianity, the concept here is the Father, Son, and the Spirit. And may I emphasize, the Holy Spirit ideally should be like this kind of immunity against demonic predatory acts, because the Holy Spirit basically outclasses or outranks any evil spirit in all possible ways. However, don't be too overly confident in yourself that you have the Holy Spirit within you, that you go ahead looking for trouble, trying to like challenge ghosts and go to seances or play with Ouija boards. Please do not do that. Alright? Okay then. That's quite a bit. So off you go, folks. Let's try to stop it here. And thanks for listening, and goodbye.